It's been too long, my friends. Welcome back to a new video. If you're new around here, my name's Harmon. Again, it's been a long time since I've uploaded. There's been a lot of reasons for that, but let's just get into the video itself. Again, I'm gonna be back with normal upload schedule at least once a week, if not two. So stay tuned, of course, for some more videos. But let's jump into the actual case itself. Very crazy case, obviously. I have some footage that you'll see in a minute. So let's stay tuned. All right, guys, so we're here in Everett, Washington. Again, this is roughly an hour or so north of Seattle. Again, this is where I used to live, so I'm very familiar with the area. Now, this case in particular involves an officer from the Everett Police Department. His name was Dan Rocha. Now, Dan unfortunately was murdered by an individual at the Starbucks right here in town. So again, we're walking towards the Starbucks. So I'm going to show you guys where he was murdered at, of course. Talk to you guys along the way about what happened. And I'm going to show you guys where the suspect, where he crashed his car and where he was apprehended at. Not that far away from here. I believe it was like 5 blocks, give or take, from where he shot the officer at. So anyway, we're gonna head on to Starbucks, talk to you guys about the case. Now, the date was March 25th, 2022. It was around 2 p.m. again at the Starbucks on North Broadway in Everett. Dan Rocha, he was, again, just getting some coffee. I don't know for sure if he had started his shift quite yet, but either way, he was in Starbucks getting coffee. And again, different reports give a few different time frames and a little bit of different information. So again, just take that as you will. One report says that Dan got a report, like someone called in to 911 about a suspicious person in the Starbucks parking lot. And another article says that he simply just saw the suspect outside in the parking lot. The suspect, whose name is Richard Rotter, he saw Richard outside in the Starbucks parking lot moving some guns between 2 different cars. So regardless if he got a 911 call or if he simply just looked out the window and saw him moving the guns, either way, he went outside to, of course, investigate what was going on. So as he approached Richard, he of course talked to him and said, "Hey, I noticed you were moving some sort of weapons or guns." Now, at first, Richard had claimed, he said, "No, they're not real guns. It's just like a BB gun that you just saw." Of course, he was completely lying. And after about 5 minutes or so talking with Richard, that is when Richard decided to make the ultimate choice. And that choice was to go ahead and try to shoot his way out of the situation. So Richard ended up grabbing one of the many guns he was loading into his car, turned, and ended up shooting Officer Rocha 3 times in the head, and I believe a few more times in his chest. Obviously, it killed him instantly. Then, to top it off, Richard ended up driving his car over Officer Rocha's body. So, as you can imagine, just absolute shock, horror, and lots of blood. There was a flurry of 911 calls, of course, coming from different community members. Lots of people, of course, screaming, as you can imagine. All right, guys, right here coming up, this is the Starbucks. This is where Dan Rocha was murdered, in the parking lot. So I'm going to show you guys exactly where that happened. Now, if I can, I will insert a quick video clip of Dan Rocha's body cam. But again, just imagine that Dan Rocha would have come out of the Starbucks and he would have seen Richard Rocha right about over here. There would have been 2 cars. Again, I don't know what the other car was, if it was like his friend's car. But either way, right about here was Richard Rocha's car, and then again, I don't know if it was a friend's car or something, but the 2 cars were parked here, and he was moving the guns back and forth between the 2 cars. And so again, Officer Rocha would have come out of the Starbucks right here and approached Richard Rocha and obviously questioned him and be like, what are you doing with these guns? And again, unfortunately, Officer Rocha, I'm not taking it off the license plates. I'm doing a video of the murder of the officer that happened here.
You can't do it on the property, sorry.
Okay. I'm almost done. Like 10 seconds. Just about to leave. Just finishing up. I'm not even trying to get a license plate. Anyway, as I was rudely interrupted, unfortunately, as I said, Officer Rocha would have, unfortunately, he would have died right here, somewhere near the parked cars. And the way I know that is, again, I looked at the body cam footage and it showed the 2 cars here and them talking, and then that white building in the background. So that's how I know. But anyway, so after Richard Rocha murdered the officer, he quickly peeled out of the parking lot. And again, there's many different ways to get around Everett. So my guess is he would have come down this way towards Broadway. Again, as I said, there's many different ways to get out of the parking lot. Now, guys, I don't know if you could hear what was going on when I was at Starbucks. One of the workers came out and was like, you cannot film license plates in our parking lot. And I was like, I wasn't even trying to film license plates. I'm just filming a case here. And she got really mad. I was like, this is not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to film a case. So again, this is probably the 5th time that I have been yelled at for trying to film a video. So if you're ever curious on how often that happens, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now. I've been yelled at 5 times, so about once a year it seems to happen. Anyway, as I said, we're gonna walk around. I'll show you guys exactly where he crashed the car and all that. But anyway, this is part of the Everett Community College campus, which again, this is where I attended for 3 years or so as I got my law and justice degree here. So it's kind of like deja vu. Officers eventually tracked Richard Rocha down, fleeing the scene, of course, at a high rate of speed. He fled down Rucker Avenue, which is, again, not that far away from here. And Richard ended up crashing into several cars. His car got flipped over on its side, and he was apprehended. Now, Richard Rocha was no Boy Scout before this murder. He had many different run-ins with the police. Again, I'm not entirely sure if he had any actual arrests on his background, but he definitely had run-ins with the police. They knew of him. He was a pretty constant drug user from what I've been reading. And so, obviously, Richard did not want to get put in jail or prison for any of the things he was doing, including all the drug use and drug paraphernalia and stuff that he had. Now, in court, Richard claimed that it was not premeditated and that it was influenced more by his mental health disorder. However, the prosecution did not buy that theory, as again, he shot Officer Rocha 3 times in the head and drove over his body to make sure he was dead. The prosecutor even said, and I quote, "The defendant made a business decision. It was worth it to him to kill a cop who just wouldn't let it go." Richard Rocha was eventually sentenced to life in prison for his role in the murder of Dan Rocha. So in a sense, it's good that he eventually got caught, obviously, but it's good that he's no longer going to be able to be out in the public. He's going to be in prison for life. And so in that sense, I'm glad. But on the other hand, an officer lost his life simply by just doing his job, just investigating a simple thing that turned into murder. All right, little background on Officer Rocha. So he had been with the Everett Police Department since 2017. And previously, he had served as a parking enforcement officer. Officer Rocha is survived by his wife and his 2 sons. He was 41 years old at the time of his unfortunate murder. I looked it up, and Officer Rocha, his burial was listed as unknown. And so obviously the best I can do is just showcase where he was killed at and where the suspect was apprehended. All right, guys, so as I said, we're walking down to the actual crash site where Richard Rocha crashed into several cars and was apprehended. It's on the corner of Rucker and 35th Avenue. Again, not that far away at all from the Starbucks. 7-minute drive, give or take. So we're gonna line up a picture and insert the picture to show you guys. His car ended up pretty much in the middle of this intersection. Let me show you. Okay, so again, imagine I imagine his car was literally right there in the intersection. Give or take, right about there. But again, it was right about here. Pretty crazy scene. Not entirely sure how fast he was going, but he must have been speeding pretty fast to make that kind of crash.